Let me begin by saying this is not a judgment. This isn't a speech that's going to hand you a list of dating tips, swipe strategies, or 3 quick ways to fall in love by Friday. This is about truth. And truth, when we let it in, is rarely comfortable, but it's always freeing. So let me ask you a question I've asked myself many times, and that I've heard whispered behind closed doors, in therapy rooms, in late night conversations with friends. Why am I still single? It's the kind of question that can echo with shame, especially in a world that equates love with worth, partnership with success, and being alone with brokenness. But I want to flip that script today. I want to invite you into a braver space, because the 81 reason you are single isn't because something is wrong with you. It's because you're being invited to face something incredibly powerful yourself. You can't truly love someone until you're willing to sit alone with yourself. And I mean, really sit without the distractions, goofy, without the scrolling, without filling every moment with noise or someone else's energy. Just you. Just your breath, your thoughts, your memories, your hopes, your fears. You see, loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness feels like being abandoned by the world. Solitude is when you finally choose to meet yourself. For a lot of us, we move from relationship to relationship, conversation to conversation, hoping that someone will quiet the storm inside us, that someone will hold us tight enough to make the self-doubt disappear, that if we just love hard enough, give enough, sacrifice enough, we'll finally feel seen. But the truth is, if you haven't made peace with yourself, no one else can do that work for you. When you haven't learned to be alone with yourself, you end up using relationships as a mirror to reflect who you hope to be, not who you actually are. You date to feel worthy. You love to feel safe. You stay in places that hurt because you're afraid the silence of being alone might hurt more. But the silence isn't the enemy. The silence is the space where truth shows up. It's where you get real about the wounds you've been carrying, the patterns you keep repeating, the stories you've believed about what love should feel like. And here's the paradox: the more we avoid that silence, the more power it holds over us. But the moment you stop running and sit with yourself, you begin to understand something radical. You were never unlovable. You were just disconnected from your own worth. Sitting with yourself is not about being tough or emotionally detached. It's about being soft in a world that told you softness was weakness. It's about offering compassion to your inner critic, the one that says you're too broken, too late, too complicated. It's about learning to love your own presence so that when someone else walks into your life, it's not to fill a gap, but to join you in your wholeness. And until you're willing to go there, until you've learned to look at your own reflection with kindness, to forgive yourself, to celebrate yourself, to understand your triggers and own your growth, you'll always be searching for someone to give you what you haven't yet given to yourself. Because true love, the kind that's deep and sustaining, is not born from desperation or fear. It's born from clarity. It's born from self-respect. It's born from the quiet courage of a person who knows who they are and isn't afraid to be alone, not as a fallback, but as a foundation. When you reach that place, you stop choosing people out of scarcity. You start choosing people who match your peace, not because you need them to complete you, but because you want to share what you've already cultivated within yourself. And that right there, that's where real love begins. Real love requires real vulnerability. Not the curated kind, not the version where you share just enough to appear open, but not enough to risk rejection, not the performance of intimacy, the goofy that many of us have mastered, the one where we say the right things, not at the right times, and offer parts of ourselves in perfectly timed doses to maintain control. No, I'm talking about raw, unpolished, sometimes trembling vulnerability. The kind that says, here I am, this is my fear, this is my joy, this is what I've survived, this is what I still don't understand about myself. Will you stay? And most people, if we're honest, don't know how to love like that. Not because they're incapable, but because they're terrified, because vulnerability is risky. It means stepping out without a guarantee. It means putting your heart in someone else's hands, fully knowing they could drop it. It means being seen, not just in your strengths and successes, but in your insecurities, your doubts, your past mistakes. That's terrifying for people who have learned to protect themselves at all costs. Goofy, we live in a world that confuses strength with invulnerability. We're taught to be independent, to never need anyone too much, to always look like we have it together. And then we wonder why our relationships feel shallow, or why we attract people who only want the image we project. But how could they love you deeply if they've never met the real you? Real love requires you to show up as you are, not as who you think someone else wants. It requires you to take off the armor, the mask, the act. It asks you to say things like, I'm scared, or I don't have it all figured out, or I've been hurt before, but I still want to try. That's not weakness. That's courage. That's the kind of courage that creates connection, not just chemistry. The problem is, most of us want connection, but avoid the cost of it. We want to be loved, but we hide the parts we believe will make us unlovable. And so we keep secrets. We edit ourselves. We settle for surface level relationships that feel safe, but never satisfying. But love isn't safe, it's sacred. And sacred things demand reverence, honesty, and presence. You can't have true intimacy without vulnerability. You can't be truly loved if you're not willing to be truly known. And that means risking rejection. It means trusting someone enough to let them see your mess and your magic, your strength and your softness. It means saying, I'm choosing to open this door, even if I've been hurt before, even if I don't know what happens next. And yes, you might get hurt again, but you also might find a depth of love that makes every scar worth it. A love that doesn't demand perfection, a love that sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway. That kind of love doesn't come from pretending, it comes from showing up fully, honestly, bravely, because real love isn't something you perform into being. It's something you invite by being real. The walls you built to protect yourself, maybe the same walls, keeping love out. It probably didn't start out that way. Those walls were never meant to keep good things away. They were meant to keep pain at bay. You built them out of necessity. Maybe someone broke your trust. Maybe you were abandoned at a moment when you needed someone the most. Maybe love, the way you first experienced it, came with conditions, with strings attached, with shame or silence. So you learned to protect yourself. You learned to tighten your heart just enough to survive. And that was wise. That was your body, your soul, doing what it had to do to stay safe. And for a while, it worked. The walls kept the chaos out. They gave you space to breathe. They helped you function. But here's what no one tells you. The same barriers that kept the pain out also keep the intimacy out. The numbness that protected you from heartbreak also keeps you from fully feeling joy. The silence that kept you from arguing also keeps you from connecting. The independence that kept you standing also keeps people at a distance. Eventually, the armor becomes the burden, because what started as a survival mechanism becomes a lifestyle. You tell yourself, I don't need anyone. You pride yourself on how well you can handle everything on your own. You even convince yourself that vulnerability is a luxury for other people. But deep down, beneath the self-sufficiency, beneath the competence, and confidence is a tender longing. A longing to be known, not just admired. To be held, not just respected. To be loved, not just understood. But love doesn't negotiate with armor. Love requires access. It doesn't barge in, it waits to be invited. And when your walls are too thick, too high, too guarded, love passes you by. Not because you're unworthy, but because love needs space to breathe. It needs softness. It needs presence. It needs you, unmasked, uncertain human. That's the brutal truth about healing. At some point, you have to decide whether you want to be safe or seen, whether you want to keep building higher walls or start building bridges. And that means letting the guards down, not all at once, not recklessly, but intentionally. It means recognizing that safety and intimacy are not mutually exclusive. You can feel protected and connected. You can create boundaries without building barriers. Sometimes we think when the right person comes along, I'll open up. But it doesn't work like that. The right person won't know how to reach you if you've locked every door. Love can only go where it's allowed. So the work is not waiting for someone to prove they're safe. The work is learning how to feel safe again within yourself first. That's where the healing begins, not by tearing all the walls down in one day, but by gently opening a window, letting the light in, letting someone see a little more of the real you, practicing honesty in small doses. Letting love take its time. You don't have to be unguarded to be worthy, but you do have to be available. And maybe the greatest act of courage is not falling in love. It's believing you're safe enough to let someone in even after everything, because the walls you built were never the problem. The problem is when we forget we have the power to choose when to open the gate. And love, real love, it's patiently waiting on the other side, not to break in, but to be welcomed. The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every relationship you'll ever have. I know it sounds like a cliche, love yourself first. It's one of those phrases that gets thrown around like a catchy slogan, something easy to say but often harder to practice. But the truth is, it's not just an idea, it's a foundational truth that governs everything. How you treat yourself, how you speak to yourself, how you care for yourself, it all becomes the lens through which you view the world and everyone in it. And that includes the people you allow into your life. You see, self-love isn't just about having a positive self-image or getting the occasional bubble bath to feel good. It's about deeply understanding your worth, not because of what you've done or how you look or how others see you, but because of who you are at the core. It's about showing up for yourself with compassion, with understanding, with forgiveness. It's about treating yourself as if you are worthy of love, care, respect, and kindness. Not when you've achieved something, not when you're in the mood, but right here, right now. When you don't nurture the inner relationship, when you don't prioritize your own needs or emotions, something begins to shift in the way you relate to others. You start to seek validation externally, hoping that someone will fill void you've been neglecting within yourself. You look for others to tell you that you matter, that you're enough. But what happens when someone else's validation is inconsistent, or when they can't give you what you need in the exact moment you need it? You begin to feel lost, abandoned, unimportant. And that's when the patterns of unhealthy relationships can emerge, when you don't know how to give yourself the love and care you need. You can end up in relationships that are draining, where you're constantly giving and never fully receiving. You might find yourself compromising your needs, your boundaries, your voice just to keep the peace or to keep someone around. You might settle for less than you deserve because deep down, you don't believe that you are enough to be loved in your entirety. But when you start loving yourself, when you start creating that relationship from a place of self-respect, you raise the bar for what you'll accept from others. And here's the kicker: when you love yourself truly and deeply, when you know your value and have learned to protect your heart without building walls, you will naturally attract people who reflect that same respect back to you. Not because you're perfect, not because you're always put together, but because you're unapologetically, authentically yourself. Your relationship with yourself teaches others how to love you. When you set boundaries with kindness, when you honor your needs, when you prioritize your mental and emotional well-being, you are showing people around you that you won't settle for anything less than the love you give yourself. You're teaching them that real love is mutual, it's respectful, it's honest, and it's vulnerable. And the beauty of this is that the love you cultivate for yourself doesn't just change how others relate to you. It transforms how you relate to others. It gives you the confidence to say, I am worthy of love, not because of anything I've done or who I'm trying to be, but simply because I am me, and I don't need to prove that to anyone. When you treat yourself with kindness, You stop blaming yourself for things outside of your control. You stop carrying the weight of other people's actions on your shoulders. You stop apologizing for who you are, for what you need, for what you've been through. Instead, you stand firm in the truth that you are enough as you are. This doesn't mean you don't have room to grow. It just means you stop growing from a place of shame or inadequacy. You begin to grow because you choose to, because you want to become the best version of yourself. Not to earn love, but because you believe that you are worthy of all the good things life has to offer. So the relationship you have with yourself, how you honor your own heart, how you hold space for your own imperfections is the standard for every relationship you will ever have. You'll never have a healthy, fulfilling relationship with an infant until you've learned to cultivate that with yourself first. And if you're in a place where you're struggling to love yourself, know this, it's not a destination, it's a practice. It's a process of small, intentional steps toward treating yourself with the same grace, patience, and tenderness that you would give to someone you love deeply. Start with compassion. Start with understanding. Start with saying, I am enough. Because when you believe that, you'll begin to see it reflected in every relationship you cultivate. And that, my friends, is the foundation of real, lasting love. You're not too much. You're not too little. You're just not meant to settle. It's easy to feel like you're too much sometimes. Too loud, too sensitive, too emotional, too ambitious. You might have heard these words from others, or maybe even told yourself these things over the years. And somewhere along the way, you might have started to believe that in order to be loved or accepted, you need to shrink yourself, dull your shine, or minimize your dreams. It can feel like you're constantly being asked to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. Whether it's in a relationship, in your career, or just in your daily life. But here's the truth, you are not too much. You are exactly the right amount of you. Let's talk about what it means to be too much. It's a phrase that gets thrown around when someone's energy is bold, when their heart is open, when their dreams are big, when their emotions are raw. People say you're too much because they're uncomfortable with the intensity you bring into a room or the passion you carry in your soul. But the problem isn't with you. It's with their inability to handle the power of your presence. So let me say it again. You are not too much. And on the flip side, maybe you've felt like you're too little. Like you're not enough, not big enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough to take up space in this world. So many of us shrink ourselves down in response to the fear of not being good enough, or because we've been told to dim our light, to play small. We tell ourselves, I'll just stay quiet. I'll keep my opinions to myself. I'll blend in, and maybe then I won't get hurt. We settle. But what happens when we settle? We forget our power. We forget our worth. We forget that we deserve the fullness of what life has to offer, just as we are in all our glorious messiness. But here's the thing, you are not too little either. You don't need to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You are not meant to make yourself invisible or small to fit into a space that wasn't meant for you. You are meant to stand tall, to take up space, to be seen for who you are. You're not meant to be minimized. You're meant to thrive. The real issue here, the one that keeps us trapped in cycles of self-doubt and dissatisfaction, is the idea that we need to settle. We settle in relationships because we're afraid that if we hold out for what we truly deserve, we might end up alone. We settle in jobs because we think that we're lucky to have any opportunity at all. We settle in friendships because we don't believe we deserve to be surrounded by people who lift us up, not tear us down. We settle because we're afraid that if we aim too high, we might fall. But let me tell you something. You are not meant to settle. You are meant to create, to build, to experience life in its fullest form. The life you deserve isn't the life you get by shrinking yourself, by dimming your light, by lowering your standards to meet others' expectations. The life you deserve is the one where you stand in your power, where you allow yourself to dream, to love, to be vulnerable, to grow. It's the one where you show up as you unapologetically and know that you are worthy of everything that it is waiting for you. When you stop settling, you start to raise the bar, not just for the way others treat you, but for the way you treat yourself. You stop accepting and less than you deserve. And in doing so, you start to attract the things that are meant for you. You begin to surround yourself with people who see your worth, who value you for who you are, and not just for what you can give. You start building a life that aligns with your deepest values, your truest desires, and your most authentic self. And when you stop settling, you stop holding back your own potential, you stop playing it safe, and instead, you start stepping into your power. You trust that the right opportunities will come, that the right people will come, but they will only come when you stop settling for anything less than what you truly deserve. So don't ever believe that you're too much. Don't believe that you're too little. And don't you dare settle for a life that is anything and less than extraordinary, because you are extraordinary. You are worthy of all the love, success, joy, and abundance the world has to offer. You are not meant to settle. You're meant to rise. So the next time you find yourself asking, why am I still single? And instead of letting shame answer that question, let courage answer it. Let it say, because I am still becoming the kind of person who won't abandon myself just to be chosen. That's not a weakness. That's a revolution. That's a revolution. You are single not because you're not enough, but because you're finally learning that you are. And when love does arrive, and you'll recognize it, because it will feel like home, not a hustle.